gave rise to temptation.
Final Fantasy XVI is the newest mainline entry in Final Fantasy. By mainline, I mean numbered Final Fantasy game. These games are known for having just an amazing storyline, gameplay, and music. The series does its best to evolve every time a new mainline game is out, and I believe that it does that really well. I'm a fan of the series, but in this review, I wanted to try my best to not compare this to other titles, and kind of review this game as its own standalone thing. As a quick heads up, I'll be showing basically just the first few hours of this game to avoid any spoilers for people. The game was also just so gorgeous, I mean I had to move from my monitor to my OLED TV for that best cinematic experience. You won't see any spoilers when it comes to story, because I think that's something this game does really well, at least for the first part of the experience. Odds are you know Final Fantasy XVI is a good game. It's an 88 right now on Metacritic, with most critics praising it, and just a lot of users are even calling it their game of the year. If you're a little nervous about the game, there is a free demo that lets you try out the first couple hours, and that progress will even carry over into the game if you decide to buy it. With that out of the way, I just want to say, to be completely honest, the review took me so long, despite all of my hype for the game. It's just because I just couldn't get into it. I don't think that the game is really that good, and I really think that almost all of its mechanics feel unfinished or in some kind of weird beta form. I think the series is in an amazing space though, and just because this one didn't work for me, doesn't mean it won't work for you. Final Fantasy XVI's focus on story was something I completely expected, being just a fan of the series. I mean, I'm used to the long cutscenes, and I love the world building. As the game started, I was hooked. I was playing it for a few days straight just because I wanted answers. The game follows Clive, the main character, on his journey, and really doesn't focus on any type of party or friend system like in the previous games. I don't mind this at all. I also love being able to pause the game and read expanded lore. Thought that was a really cool feature. The voice acting and the cinematography of the game really just stands out, pulls you in. It's an awesome experience. Without spoiling some story things, there's an opening sequence that really gets you to care for these characters, makes your quest feel even more important. The world of Valisthea is medieval, and Clive Rossfield is the shield, aka the protector of his brother Joshua, who has the powers of the Phoenix. This power skipped Clive though, who technically shouldn't have powers, but I mean as you play you'll see what happens. Plot twists go on, and basically this sets Clive on a journey to get revenge on who murdered his brother. The developers admit, I mean this one was heavily inspired by Game of Thrones, and I mean you'll notice it, and I think it works. Game of Thrones with more magic and giant beasts going to war, just sign me the hell up. My issues though with the story aren't really what's written, but a little more pacing related. The game starts off with a bang, and it sets up this really deep political story of humanity basically being pieces of shit, backstabbing each other, and sadly this all loses momentum about 40% maybe of the way in. It ditches all of this for this existential world-ending trope that, I mean, we just see this in so many games or animes. Where it went didn't completely suck me out of the story though, it was pacing that did. Without spoiling much, there are a few time skips that happen because the story focuses on Clive and his life. The final time skip is where 60% of the game maybe is being taken place in, and by then I just really wasn't into it. I felt like the story was no longer really engaging, the cutscenes were really just starting to drag, especially because the game turned into kind of like a side quest simulator for those main missions. You spent so much time running over to someone, talking to them, running back across, talking to someone else, taking something from them, bringing it back to another person, only to have like an 8-minute cutscene happen, the day pass, and then you do that all again. All of this was really after the highs that you get from these epic icon boss battles, where you literally turn into the Final Fantasy summon beast and you go toe-to-toe kaiju Godzilla style battle. It really felt like the game was just trying to drag out its playtime, and I wish most of that, or maybe all of that, was just replaced with 1 or 2 really big cutscenes. It just sucks having to sit through so much non-gameplay after the highs of the game set you up for it, and it really just feels like they're wasting your time. I was so hyped when I first saw the first trailer. I mean, I was even more hyped when I found out that the combat would be involving, because Square Enix hired Devil May Cry's combat designer, Ryota Suzuki. Final Fantasy XVI has a huge emphasis on combat with this system, and as soon as the combat gets kind of dull or boring, you unlock more and more powers that expand on your combos. Again, I only wish pacing here was a little better too, because the speed that you're actually unlocking these are just way too spread out, with one of the best powers, I think, only happening in that last like 15% of the game. At first, combat's a highlight. It's fast paced, it relies on dodging, parrying, using these icon abilities to build up a stagger bar, stagger the enemy, and just wreck them with everything you've got. It really, really quickly becomes formulaic and just a cooldown simulator. I found myself using my abilities, and by the time I went through all 3 of my icon powers, my abilities were back up again to use. Battles go on for a really long time, and they're not really that challenging. I mean, I respect 3 times to make adjustments and just spice up the gameplay a bit, but it still didn't help. Boss battles, though, were a huge highlight for me. I mean, what's not to like about the kaiju-style battles? These sequences are just so epic. The music is amazing. I mean, the music in general for this game is amazing, but that's just a normal Final Fantasy thing. I think the boss battles are maybe the best and most unique parts of this game. Even if some kind of did start to drag out a bit, there's just seriously a huge spectacle that happens during this game, and I just don't mind these little quick time events that people are complaining about, because I think it adds to that cinematic feel that they were going for. I found myself basically just grinding away at all the other stuff because I just wanted to experience the next amazing boss battle. When it comes to gameplay, you're going to find yourself going from location to location on this overworld map. The game is not open world, it's linear. There's a map, you hold X to get into one of these areas, and you're in. I don't mind the linear thing here at all. I mean, I feel like I've had my fill with just open world games. Almost every game that comes out now is open world, and it's kind of dragging. But I thought this was a nice change of pace to have. The areas are basically just towns with some side quests that are honestly terrible up until the end. I'm not going to pretend that most games have really good side quests, because they don't. I think even Tears of the Kingdom and Witcher 3 had shit side quests. Side quests in games, I feel like, need to be a little more narrative focused rather than finding just apples for someone. Also, I mean, if I am finding apples or something, or just give me cool shit for completing these, I felt like everything I picked up in the game just seemed pointless. The economy makes no sense. You're getting crafting material with every encounter that's basically pointless up until you get into a boss battle. Bosses give you unique material to craft a new sword, but the gear system just comes down to equip the gear with the highest number. There's no effects on any of the weapons. Your ice blade, for example, doesn't do frost damage or attack differently. Your fire attacks aren't doing more damage to the plant-based enemies either. I mean, you can equip medallions that decrease the cooldowns, and there's these assisted ones that basically play the game for you. Not a fan of that at all. Don't know why that's in there, but I guess it's in there for the people that don't want to play. I mean, the game's gear system just feels really lacking, and I almost wish it just wasn't there, or if it was just a little more fleshed out at least. I think that boils down to my main problem with the game. I feel like the story is really fleshed out, just really well, but all of the other systems in the game are not. The game's world design is beautiful. It's such a nice game to look at, but the levels feel hollow and empty. There aren't many secrets to discover if you go left or right instead of straight. And if you find a chest, it's got 15 gil in it. Levels feel like hallway simulators where you're basically killing everything, squeezing through a crack or hallway, kill things again, and just repeat till you get to the boss. Combat, in my opinion, is lacking just a little more depth to make it just more fun. I wish there were more combos with your sword rather than just chaining these icon powers, which comes down to just spamming the abilities and waiting for them to come back. The game wants to focus on Clive, so other members don't really matter in these battles, but it just seems like even Clive is not fully fleshed out by endgame. I mean, even when I got all of my icon powers, add in that weird pacing that happens a little before at the halfway point, I mean, where you're just making your way back and forth on the base, talking to people, sometimes even taking just a few steps forward to have a cutscene happen, only to get into another cutscene again. I really was just pulled out of the game by this point. My rating for Final Fantasy 16 is a 6 out of 10. I hate that this game didn't work for me. I was really looking forward to it and wish I made just an impression video first, because my initial thoughts on the game were really high. I mean, I was telling all of my friends that they had to buy this game because that's just how hooked I was during the beginning. Unfortunately, the game's story pacing, where the story basically goes, boring level design, and just repetitive combat didn't work out for me. I think it's a good blueprint for maybe future titles, And if they revisit this style again, I'm not gonna mind. I just wish that they would flesh it out just a bit more. I don't need anything super complex. I don't need super complex crafting. But I mean, give me a sense of achievement for creating a badass sword. And give me excitement every time I use the sword. Unlocking combos for icon powers would have been awesome instead of just trying to chain them together. Even just lighting someone on fire or having, burn damage slowly hurt them would have been nice. By the end of my 40-ish hour journey with the game, I was seriously just burnt out. I hate having to do this, but I mean, I chose to make a channel and review game. I'm too small to get codes, and as biased as I am with the whole Final Fantasy series, as much as I love all the previous games, I try my best to just put that all away and make an honest review of what I'm playing right now. This is just what I think about the game, and I mean, odds are most of you just aren't gonna agree, which is fine. I really wanted to like the game, and I think most people do love the game. I mean, I've seen so many other reviews and Reddit posts about people being just moved to tears during the story of this game. And I think just because this one didn't work for me, doesn't mean it's not gonna work for you. I think if you're curious, go ahead, try out that demo, see if you like it. Like I said earlier, it is at an 88 right now with nothing but just mostly positive reviews. Odds are if you buy this game, you're gonna like it. I just really hope the next game adds to this system because I feel like overall, it's a good direction to be going in. So if you beat the game, if you're playing the game right now, drop a comment, let me know what you think. I mean, I think I just missed something here, but again, this is just what I think. I beat the game. Not really planning on doing the new game plus, to be honest with you guys. Let me know what you thought. See you guys on the next video. Thanks.